which one did we have? Conflict. I just thought this was important, to talk about, because conflict of education, because we're talking about indigenized, and we're talking about bringing indigenous, education to online, but also bringing it to hopefully all public schools. So this was something that caught my eye when I was doing research years ago, and I wasn't doing it in 1744, but but I was really caught by this because I see the conflict myself, because I've lived in a First Nation community, and I was one of the ones that somehow I saw the violence because I saw other people being violated just because of their language. I'm a reader, and I started reading at an early age. Books my people would trade, for my grandfather. So I was always reading. That's why English came to me a little bit easier than my peers. And but they would come to me and say, "What does that teacher want in our language?" And we would both get punished because we were sent to a school not knowing English into an English school, and so those teachers weren't prepared. So it's no wonder they skipped us and made us think we were, not ready for school, and that's why there were so many policies that were saying that we're slow learners. We don't get it, but it's because we were from a different language. So in 1744, after the signing of the Treaty of Lancaster, the commissioners of the colony of Virginia offered to educate 6 sons of the Iroquois Confederacy at a college in Williamsburg. The commissioners received this reply. So this is, and at that time you could see what was happening. The commissioners of the colony were trying to befriend chiefs so they can get to the medicines and the best hunting places, the food. So, quote, several of our young people were formally brought up at the colleges of the northern provinces. They were instructed in all your sciences, but when they came back to us, they were bad runners, ignorant of every means of living in the woods, unable to bear either cold or hunger. Next one, please. Yeah. Knew neither how to build a cabin, take a deer, or kill an enemy. Spoke our language imperfectly, were therefore neither fit for hunters, warriors, or counselors. They were totally good for nothing. We, however, not the less obliged by your kind offer, though we decline accepting it. This would have been after 4-year, next one, yeah. And to show our grateful sense of it, if the gentlemen of Virginia will send us a dozen of their sons, we will take great care of their education, instruct them in all we know, and make men of them. From Red Jacket. So you could see what happens, and unfortunately, this is the history of our education. It's, when the, missionaries came, they didn't see our spirituality and felt that our spirituality was not up to par. Like one of my favorite stories is this elder who was doing ceremony by the tree, and the priest saying, come on, you shouldn't be praying out here. I have a church here. Why don't you come inside the church? And of course the elder, said, no offense, Father, or, but I was praying to the tree that's now your church, and stuff. So there's that wholeness, and so of course missionaries didn't see that. And in order to come into the graces of our community, they used our clan mother system. So they acknowledged when they would come to our, where's your leader? And the leaders to us would have been our clan mothers. So when the missionaries recognized that clan mothers were so revered, they brought back the grandmother of Jesus, which is St. Anne. And that's why we have St. Anne parishes to this day. It's because she's the grandmother of Jesus, and therefore you can accept this religion because it's just like yours, And so that's how we were able to do that. And to this day, like I always tell, yesterday I did for 20 young grade 9ers that are receiving their confirmation, and I showed them the braid of sweetgrass. This was our first rosary, and stuff, but we didn't call it a rosary, but it's still prayers. So the next slide, please. Yeah. So this is what education is to us. This is how we learned. Elder teaching. So there's Elder Charles Solomon and Elder Raymond Nicholas. Unfortunately, Elder Charles is doing his spirit walk right now, but still teaching me. And Elder Raymond, World War II veteran, one of the few, maybe the only, no, in Tobic at least, he's the only one left as World War II veteran. He'll be 96 or 97, 97 this year. And amazing, but so that's where we get our teachings. That's where we, base everything on was from our elders. And of course, teachings from Land and Water. So that was on Corpus Christi Day, which is ironically, you'll see the priests and the bishops and all that. This was before the dam, before the Mactaquac Dam. And so the gentleman in the boat in the forefront is Elder Charles's father. Could you imagine? So this was back in the early 1900s and stuff, So notice the beautiful canoes. And that's why our waters were clean for so long, because we used canoes. We were, and I remember being in a canoe with my grandfather. I'm 67, and I remember being able to drink from the river from the canoe if I was thirsty. It wasn't, let's go to Walmart and buy a case of plastic bottles so you can have a drink. You know what I mean? So that's just in my lifetime. So that's what I mean. So there's these things that you have to really consider. And so I remember a time when the water was that clean. Next one, please. And of course, wampum belt. See that two-row wampum belt? When our treaties were being signed, our treaties, of course, it was, and as people will say, of course, some indigenous scholars will say, I don't like the term, we are all treaty people. Even though we are, but there's a responsibility. Who's taking the responsibility as a treaty signator, So even our indigenous people, there's elders that say, we never signed treaties. And so, but that's because they didn't get grounded in their own culture. And so they believe what the history books are saying. So they've really become colonized, I guess. But the two-row wampum belt, and the reason it's standing up, and is very important. So if you ever go to museums and you see them this way with one line over the other, you tell that museum curator it has to be up, because when one is above the other, there's no equality there. But when it's vertical, then it's side by side, and that's what we promised as nation to nation, that we would respect each other's worldviews as nation to nation. The other ones it's called they actually have flags of them. It's the Wabanaki Confederacy. So it's the four Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqey, Passamaquoddy, and Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, Wolastoqey, Penobscot. And in the center is our tie to each other and stuff, okay? And they're coming back, by the way. Right now, we're actually doing a wampum belt for education, and I'm thinking that's what maybe NBCC could consider, to really build a relationship, that we would have a wampum belt. It doesn't have to be as big as that. It could just be a symbol of our promise we're going to, be nation to nation in delivering our programs and our curriculum and so on and so forth. It really does make a statement. If you go to Delta here in Fredericton, they have a friendship and hospitality belt that they had, and the young woman, she did she did Passamaquoddy, Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and non-Aboriginals for the province of New Brunswick, and then she has the Delta logo on the design, but it's their promise, and so I get to use, and like I just did sunrise ceremony there for our conference behind the Delta, so they promised to let me use for ceremony. If I want to do a sweat lodge, I can do a sweat lodge on the property, so it's a real good partnership. So sacred pipe teachings, very important, and I know we're going to talk about them before, but when we were signing those treaties, we didn't know why we would have to put a name on a piece of paper. That's why on original treaty documents, you'll see clan, like, a bear claw, a wolf claw, or a pipe, or a canoe, because those were the clans that were there that were representing our people. It wasn't Imelda Pearly, 2016, and stuff. It wasn't like that. And so, of course, what we were taught is we carry truth as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the rivers flow. That's in our oral tradition. But today, or our oral traditions, because of the government, our government relationship, our government doesn't recognize our oral traditions. If it's not in a document, they're going to say, prove it. And that's why we're still going to courts to prove that this is unceded, unsurrendered land. We're still going to, we're fighting with NB Power for the building of dams without our permission, because they said, well, we have documents here, here's some people, but they were all exes. I mean, so there's some things to think about. So that's why the pipe would have been done. And it came to be called peace pipe, because there was underlying purpose for, signing treaties. And so for us, the sacred pipe would have been, this part of the pipe represents the male, and the bowl represents the female, and that's that balance. So when I was telling you about my two spirit names, I have a male spirit name and a female spirit name, because in our worldview, I can't say that I'm only a woman. I can't say that I'm only a woman because just because I'm physically female, I have to honor that my grandfathers before me and my father, I carry their DNA as well. So I carry their essence, their spirit within me, so I have to acknowledge that. That's why in my language, we don't have any gender. We don't have he and she in our language to teach us about that balance of being always as one. Even our greeting, Dungakalo Gil. We never say good morning, good afternoon. We can say it, but we say Dungakalo Gil, which literally means, how is your spirit today in this moment? And so we always say, Mej Adebeskun.